Alright, this is Uncle Mikey, and I'm doing a deck profile that I've made for a deck for the character Duo. We have Duo here. He is a 6-hand size with a 26 vitality character. He has the symbols All, Death, and Void. I've chosen to build the deck on All. Now with the character, he has the Enhance, E, checking on a 4+, reveal the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Your opponent removes all non-attack cards revealed this way from the game and returns all attack cards on the top of their deck, face down. Then their opponent may shuffle their deck, only playable during your attack. So basically, this character is kind of on to the sense of the mill aspect, where he wants to remove cards from the game, so that you're not having those cards. Because again, this game doesn't really have a lot of the mill aspect to it, but it has with Duo here with this character that aspect where it's removing the game, but the opponent as a trade-off gets to keep their attacks. Also has it on its next ability. It has E, change the zone of this attack to high or mid. This attack gets +1 speed. Off of this ability, I have built with my attacks, being able to use to change it to either one of those zones and to get the speed bonus. So we'll go ahead and go into those attacks. So first attack I've chosen, which I have chosen to play 4 of, which is Etten Cells. It is a 3 difficulty. It has a +0 mid block. It is a 4 mid attack, 4 speed, to do 1 damage. And then it has a 3 control check. Now with this attack, I've chosen it for several reasons. One is due to its first ability, which is your next mid attack this turn gets +3 speed. That helps it because I have a lot of mid attacks in my deck, so that I can go ahead and combo off of this attack to go ahead and get the speed bonus for it. I also make it because with Duo, with his ability, being on the 4+, and only being able to be played during attacks, I want to play a lot of attacks, I have this attack in for second ability as well, which is E. I can lose 2 vitality. I can add 1 attack with a printed difficulty of 3 or less from my discard pile and add it to my hand. And of course, with it having a lot of mid attacks, with that first ability as well, comboing off of it so that I can go ahead and get a mid attack card, so that I can go ahead and increase that speed, as well as using Duo's ability to speed to change that attack to be able to give it another speed, to make it very difficult to block, or if they choose to block, you have to go ahead and use a lot of their foundations to go ahead and check to be able to pass that block. The next card I have in is Slaughterhouse. I've chosen 4 of those as well because I really like this card as to help to start off with, as this is pretty much my what we like to call as the poke attack, or as my first attack. It is a 5 difficulty with a 3+ mid block. It is a mid attack of 6 speed for 4 damage with a 3 control check. I like this card here because it has Breaker 1 on it, so if I do need to block with it, instead of being able to attack with it, I do have that Breaker 1 to go ahead and increase their difficulty of playing their next card. As well as having safe, since there is quite a bit of reversals in the game, I definitely like this here for that safe ability. And that keyword. I also really like to use this as my first attack because of the 5 difficulty, but as well as for its enhance. It has E. Your high or low attacks get +2 damage for the rest of the turn. This is good, especially since I've been playing a lot of mid attacks, and with the Duo's ability, I'm changing those attacks to high. So I can go ahead and use Slaughterhouse to go ahead and increase the damage of my attacks. And since I can use the Slaughterhouse and use that enhance and keep it down, now pretty much it becomes a static, and then go ahead and change, even Slaughterhouse itself going from a mid attack, changing it to a high attack, can also get the bonus as well. I just always have to remember to go ahead and use the attacks enhance first, and then use Duo's ability for it. Right, the next one I'm going to talk about is Mistral. I chose 4 of these because I like it, because it combos off of several other of my attacks. It is a low attack, so if I needed to, if I only have those in my hand along with a slaughterhouse, I can go ahead and say low for the turn. Or if need be, if I don't have the slaughterhouse, I can go ahead and just leave it at the zone it is. Or change it to high to get, or mid to combo. If I need to change it to mid, I can combo it off of Etten cells to get that speed bonus. Or change it to high to go ahead and either combo off a slaughterhouse for and then duo speed bonus. Now with Mistral, I have it's a 3 difficulty. It's a 2 mid block plus mid block. It is a low attack for a speed of 3 with 2 damage. I like this card because it combos, especially since I've run again, as I said, a lot of mid attacks, and combos off of those mid attacks. Because its combo E says that I can add one attack with a printed damage of 3 or less from my card pool and add it to my momentum. I like that because again, it makes it allow where if I play like an example in Net and Cells, I can go as my first attack. I can go ahead and take that card and pitch it from my card pool and add it to my momentum. And I have cards that I'll talk about later on that will go ahead and combo off of with that momentum to be able to use it. Also, with Duo, his ability has, with that 4 plus, revealing to reveal the top 3 cards and removing all non-attack cards. I like Mistral because I can use that in a combo way, where if they choose to leave those attacks on top of their deck, not looking at Mistral or maybe thinking they might try to hold on to those attacks instead of discarding them or shuffling their deck, I can use Mistral's second ability, which is E. Your opponent discards the top 3 cards from their deck. This also makes it where with Duo, besides removing those cards from the game, I'm also removing 3 cards from their deck, which gets closer to the mill possibility with it. And I do run 4 of those as well. The next attack I'm going to talk about that I run 4 of is Duncan. Duncan is a 4 difficulty, 1 mid block plus mid block. It again is a mid attack of 3 speed for 2 damage. Now I like this card because I make this card more of a situational card to play that I play for my opponent. The situational for them because with the ability I can use Duo to change his zone to a high attack and give it a +1 speed. But or with Slaughterhouse, if I've changed it, get the plus to the damage as well. I also like this, with the enhance as well becoming situational for 4 players to decide if they want to block or not, because it has E. If this attack is not blocked, they draw 2 cards. So I make it situational because do they want to block my attack and use a card from their hand to be able to block it, where they might be saving a block or saving an attack to use for their next turn to try to swing on me, where they'll have to use it because they don't want me to draw the 2 cards. Or do they want to take the damage to hold on to that block, but then allow me to draw those 2 cards that I could possibly draw more attacks? Because with Duo himself, he definitely wants to play a lot of attacks because he wants to get use his ability quite often, so that he can go ahead and remove cards from the game and so on. The next one I chose, and I've only actually chosen to use 2 of these, and I have been going around and debating on with attacks, and I've changed to this one, which is Hurricane Upper. Hurricane Upper is a 3 difficulty. It has a 3 plus mid block. It is a 2 mid speed attack for 3 damage. It does have the keyword multiple too, so again, it comes back to what helps like with Mistral, where I'm able to go ahead and take an attack if it's Hurricane Upper itself, if I play that first, or Duncan if I was to play that first, or Etten Cells, where it combos off of it being a mid attack, and it allows me to gain the momentum so that I can use those to discard the momentum to make and give myself up to 2 additional attacks that are copies of Hurricane Upper. It also has, as its first enhance, which I like, and that I've been trying to toy with, is its first enhance, which has reduced the attack's multiple rating to 0, and add 1 card from my discard pile to my momentum. Now this also helps fuel, so in case I don't get the Mistral to be able to fuel my momentum, I can go ahead and take a card from my discard pile. So if I need to grab any attack from my discard pile, or a card that I might need, so that later on to use to fuel the momentum and my multiple rating, or other cards that I might need, to be able to go ahead and get those off. I've actually been going, and I'll talk about which is in my sideboard. I did have originally a different attack, as you can see here, that we'll talk about just in a little bit later. So those are my attacks. I've been actually looking at that as a total of increasing Hurricane Upper to 4, or taking it out and just leave. But again, it's something that I've been testing around with and want to do a little bit more testing with. So now we'll go ahead and get into assets. The first asset we'll talk about that I have 3 of in my deck is the Golden Ticket. I like this card because it does a lot of useful things to help me. But first we'll talk about that it's a 3 difficulty card. It has a 2 low block, +2 low block, as well as a 5 control check. It is unique so that I can only have one on the field at the time, because any more than that would be pretty broken. It does have as its first ability, it's a form that you can commit. If your next card you attempt to play this turn is an attack, your checks get +1 for the rest of the turn. So with me liking to play a lot of attacks to try to use Duo's ability, I like to use this card and have it out on the field so that I can commit it to go ahead and give me that +1. Also, I kind of combo it off of for Duo because all of my attacks are three control check. Once I've played a golden ticket, getting that +1 after I've played the attack, it makes it where even if I check the card and it is an attack, I will automatically pass Duo's ability because it gives me that +1. As well as for later attacks, as I string a lot of attacks, when I have 3 to 4 attacks in my card pool, that +1 does help me to have to not commit as many foundations to be able to pass them. It also has its other ability, which is a form as well, once per turn. I may discard 1 momentum, as we were talking about, to help the reason why I like to get momentum through Hurricane Upper or Mistral. This is one reason why, to discard that momentum. For the rest of my turn, when one of my attacks would deal damage, my opponent commits 1 foundation. So this basically gives, each time I deal damage with an attack, I get a free stun 1 by just spending 1 momentum. The next card I have in, which I do apologize, I'm probably going to mess up the name, is Couronne des Fleurs. It is a 3 difficulty with no block at all. It is a 4 control check. It also is unique, and I've only chosen to run 1 of these. The reason why I chose to run 3 of Golden Ticket is because I like to have a chance to see that a lot more, so that I can go ahead and get that +1 control check for playing attacks. For this one, I thought 1 would be good just because the control check is a 4, and I would like to see it more, but I found that 1 fits the build better. I use mostly its first ability when I do have it out, which is as a reaction I can commit after my opponent removes any number of cards of the game, which with Duo I do quite often. I can go ahead and draw 2 cards. I like this ability because I can go ahead and combo it off of Duo itself to be able to give me the ability to draw the 2 cards, so that I can possibly draw 2 attacks or foundations, depending on what's in my hand, to help me kind of sculpt my hand more to get more blocks for my opponent's turn, as well as possibly more attacks for me to attack more. Right, so those are my assets. The next ones we're talking about is my action cards. I've chosen four action cards, which are Templar. It's a 3 difficulty. It's a +1 mid block and a 5 control check. Its first keyword it has is Breaker 1, so when blocking with it, I will go ahead and again increase their difficulty of my opponent playing their next card by 1. It also has the ability R as a reaction. After you block an attack with this card, draw 2 cards and gain 2 vitality. I use this ability most of the time due to I like to change due to Duo's ability, changing the attack to mid. As you've been seeing, I have a lot of mid blocks in my attacks, as well as with Templar itself. I like to go ahead and increase their speed by one to go ahead and able to block them with a mid attack. And make their attack mid so that I can block it due to my mid blocks. Well, with this ability, it allows me to go ahead and draw two cards so that I can go ahead and use for more blocking, or well as grabbing for my next turn if it happens to be attacks to use, as well as helps me go ahead and survive by gaining 2 vitality. And since I might be using Etten cells quite often, it will go ahead and kind of counterbalance losing that vitality from the attack to counterbalance to be able to get more attacks without having to lose the vitality for it. With its second ability, R, commit one foundation. After your punch attack deals damage, discard it from the card. Discard it and discard from the card pool. I don't really use that ability too often, only because in the keywords of punch, I only have the one off of Duncan, and since I can already pitch it through to Mistral, I don't use it as much, but it is more of a situational ability for me to use. So most of the time, I'm usually holding on to the card to use it as a block. Now we'll talk about my sideboard. The two cards I have right now in my sideboard, the first one I have two of, is Dashed Hopes. It's a 1 difficulty, it is a +3 low block, and a 5 control check. It has the ability R, as a response, remove this foundation from the game. After a foundation is added to my discard pile due to an effect, added to my staging area committed. I use this because of certain abilities and cards that can destroy my foundations. One example is Napalm Man with his being able to choose a foundation to destroy once per turn off of his ability, as well as Shell Kick by discarding a momentum. You can have your opponent destroy a foundation and they get one. So this kind of helps counterbalance that, so that even though I have lost that foundation, I can go ahead and add it back to my staging area committed. The other card that I'll talk about is Death Blow, that I have two of. It's a 5 difficulty. It has no block on it. It's a 3 high attack for 5 damage. It has the keywords of multiple 2 and the keyword weapon. It doesn't have any abilities, but it does have 2 statics. The first being off of the multiple for the statics. It says the zone of your first attack, first multiple copy of this attack is mid, and the zone of the second multiple copy of this attack is low. I originally had the 2 of these attacks in, and while looking at my deck, realizing that I did have quite a bit of no blocks in my deck, I was concerned that I wasn't going to be able to block as much, because what happens if I happen to draw just a lot of no blocks from my hand for the turn? But I like this card due to the fact of it is multiple 2, so just like with Hurricane Upper, I can go ahead and make 2 more copies of attacks to be able to use a duo's ability more by gaining the momentum, using it with Mistral, as well as dealing damage at the end of the turn, sending them into my momentum. But I also chose to put this in my sideboard, so in case if I do need with Hurricane Upper, I left them in there in case I need the blocks. But as well as with Death Blow, I like this a little bit better than Hurricane Upper in the sense of for the attack itself, with it being such a high attack with a 5 damage. Excuse me, sorry about that. But with Hurricane Upper, it has kind of a lower speed and lower damage for it. But with Hurricane Upper, the speed, I balance that out with Duo being the same, being able to give that +1 to change it to a high. Where Death Blow, I could change it to mid and give it the +1 speed, but I can't really, and I could combo it off of Etten cells to increase its speed. But I've been running a lot. I run all of these as high attacks because my thought on that is, well, once they're out of high blocks, they're not going to be able to block them anymore or half block them so that they're taking the damage. Right, and that would be my sideboard. I have again with Death Blow, and it does. The thing that I've made and that I haven't talked about too is with the control checks. With Templar being a 5, and Flowers being 4, and Golden Ticket being 5, those are kind of my higher control checks of my deck. Now, with all my attacks, I've chosen to keep all of my attacks with a 3 control check. I have been looking into the possibility adding in 2 control checks by adding in maybe one to have multiple copies to be able to change out, like for Hurricane Upper, to put in my sideboard and maybe change out Death Blow as well, and going with a 2 control check. But it's something that I haven't quite gone into yet with my deck that I found that really works because I like having them at 3 due to Golden Ticket when I getting that +1 to make it a 4, so that once I play Golden Ticket, my control checks go from 3 to 6 in my deck that I've made it to 4 to 7. So now we'll go ahead and talk about the foundations. First foundation that I have 4 of is Summer Heat. It is a 2 difficulty, it has a no block, and a 5 control check. It does have 2 statics, the first one being, after you play this card, draw 1 card. I like that static because once I played it, and I've successfully passed the check, I can go ahead and draw a card, which means it can help me to draw another foundation or another attack if need be, so that I can save either to use to block or to use for attack for my next turn if I'm just playing foundations. Its second ability says, after your opponent's ready step, ready this foundation. This card kind of makes it where I can go ahead and overcommit just a little bit by spending this foundation if I need to pass a control check, so that knowing I can still use this out of a defensive way to help pass my checks once the opponent chooses to attack me and I'm playing blocks. The next card we'll talk about that I have chosen to have 4 of is Seeking Information. It's a 0 difficulty +3 mid block with a 5 control check. I like this card because it has again a form where I can choose to commit this. I can choose 1 card in my discard pile, shuffle it into my deck. This helps with the counterbalance of someone who might be trying to mill me, or if I just since I will be doing a lot of checking due to Duo's ability, I might not see as many cards as I might like to see. So Seeking Information gives me that chance to put the card back into my deck so that I could possibly draw it later on for the future, as well as adding more cards so that I don't have to worry about milling myself out. The next card we'll talk about, I have 2 of, is the Trader's Son. It's a 2 difficulty +3 mid block with a 5 control check. It has the ability, as a reaction, I can choose to commit this. After your attack deals damage, your opponent reveals the top 5 of their deck and discard all non-attack cards revealed this way. Return the remaining cards on the top of your deck in any order. I use this card in a combination of Duo with the mill ability. So, once my attack deals damage, I am able to commit this, and they reveal the top 5 cards. Now, it works where I can go ahead and have them discard all non-attack cards, so that the cards that they may not be drawing and using for the mill effect, but it also adds the attacks back, so that I can use on my attack, example for Mistral, or using Duncan, which allows me to discard the top 3 cards of their deck. So, if they happen to have 2 or 3 attacks on there for the next turn, or for my next attack I play, that I can go ahead and discard those first, so that then I can use Duo's ability to try to find more foundations, or assets or actions that I can go ahead and remove from their deck, from the game. I also have chosen to use as my next card that I have 2 of, is Hizoku Prince. It's a 0 difficulty and it has no block on it, but it has a 6 control check. It has a static. This card cannot be removed from your staging area by effects. This again comes back to like with Dashed Hope, where there are abilities that will destroy foundations, and I make it where this foundation cannot be destroyed due to that static ability. It also has an enhance on it. It says, lose 1 vitality. Your opponent discards the top card of their deck, only playable during your attack. I use this as a situational card, because I don't want to really lose the 1 vitality, but I do want them to discard the top card of their deck, so I would definitely want to use that as a mill ability aspect of it, because they might put a card on top of their deck, but I may not want them to have that card, so I can go ahead and spend one vitality during the attack and get that card discarded. The next card that I've chosen to use is a 3 difficulty card. It's called the Silent Assassin. It is a +3 high block. It has a 5 control check. Now this card is unique, so I can only have one of it on the field at one time. It has the ability of, as a reaction, +4. After you change the zone of this attack, it gets +1 speed, only playable once per enhance. I like this ability as the reaction because when I use Duo's ability and I'm changing my mid-attack cards that I've been playing, or my low attack, and I can go ahead and change it to high. And now with the Silent Assassin, I can go ahead and check again on my deck and go ahead and increase that speed to, instead of a +1, I'm able to do it to a +2. It also has a secondary ability as an enhance. I can destroy this foundation. My opponent removes one random card from their hand from the game. This attack will get +2 damage, but it's only playable during my turn. I like this ability as well, as once I'm done playing attacks, or even as the first attack, depending on how many cards they have in their hand, I may be worried that they're going to block a few of my attacks. I can go and have them at random discard a card, and then give the attack that I've played an additional damage pump. So, example, if I don't have Slaughterhouse out to increase the damage, since all my attacks are between 1 to 3 damage, I can increase it by 2 by destroying the Silent Assassin to give it that +2 damage. The next card I've chosen to do is I have 4 of is Sight Seeking. It's a 2 difficulty. It has a no block on it, and it's a 5 control check. Its first ability, which can only be used by all characters, is symbolized by the all symbol next to it, and as a R commit, as a reaction to commit it. After your opponent removes one card from the game, add one card from your momentum to your hand. I have 4 of these just because of Duo with his ability. I have them reveal their cards, or the top 3 cards of their deck, and remove all non-attack cards. So this allows me to, once I've dealt damage, I can go ahead and, after the damage, or removing their cards, I can go ahead and draw another attack that I might have put in my momentum due to, like, Mistral's ability, where if I had put Ettencells or Donkin or Hurricane Upper into my momentum, I can go ahead and redraw that to be able to use to play the attack again, because I like to, with Duo, attack a lot. I've chosen to use 3 of Kapukin Training. It's a 2 difficulty, it has no block on it, but a 4 control check. Its first ability is E-Commit. If there are no cards in your opponent's card pool, your attack gets +2 speed. I use this first ability when they have no cards in their card pool to increase the speed, because if I have a Sightseeing out, or even a Slaughterhouse, I want to make sure that this attack gets a lot more speed, so that it'll be difficult for the opponent to be able to block it, and they are taking the damage that I've dealt to them. So that I can try to get that attack into my momentum if I'm unable to feed it through Hurricane Upper or Mistral. His second ability is R. Turn this foundation face down. After your opponent plays an attack, that attack loses all keywords. This card is considered a foundation with a blank text box. I like to use that if I have not committed it for its speed bonus. Excuse me. I like to use this card so that as more of a defensive ability, due to if I need to flip it. So in case someone does play something with a keyword, as in with multiple 2 or a combo, or even possible with doing as a throw, I can go ahead and remove those keywords so that they are not able to use those keywords for that attack to help me be more defensive, so that I'm able to either block the attack to take no damage. The next card I have is a 3 of as well. It's a 1 difficulty called Power Struggles. It is a +2 mid block with a 4 control check. It has a static. After you block a throw with this card, it deals no damage, and this card gains Breaker 1. I use this card with its static if I do choose to block with it, in case they do have the throws where if I don't have a Kapukin Trainer now, that I can go ahead and remove that keyword. I like to have this in my hand so that I can go ahead and block those throws. And it gives me more options. Do not have to waste Kapukin Training if it is a throw attack. And it also has, as a form, Destroy. Choose one or both players. The chosen players discard one card and draw a card. I like this in my deck because again it makes me where I can go ahead and draw a card if I choose myself, or and helps me to get rid of a card that I may have drawn that I may not need, especially for later turns, where I can go ahead and try to sculpt my one card in my hand. It also makes it where if I know that if I possibly find out that my opponent has a block of a high block, or has high blocks in his hand, I can choose them to go ahead and have to go ahead and choose one of those cards that they were going to block with, and go ahead and discard it to randomly draw where I could possibly get them to get a low block or no block, or possibly give them the block that they need. The next card I have is Astute Observer. It's a 2 difficulty, no block, a 5 control check. Its static is this foundation cannot be destroyed by opponent's effects. So it's again just like Zuko Prince and Dashed Hopes. It makes it where, in case someone has the ability to destroy cards, they cannot choose to destroy this one. It also has, as a reaction, Commit. After one of your foundations is destroyed by your opponent's effects, add one foundation from my discard pile to my staging area ready. This allows again to help me to deal with characters that have or a character or attacks or cards that have effects to allow that make me destroy my foundation. Where I can go ahead and destroy a foundation, but by committing this card, I can go ahead and add one card that I might have destroyed myself or that my opponent has destroyed and go ahead and add it to my staging area to be able to use. It also has, as a first form, I can go ahead and commit, discard one card to draw a card. This allows me, again, just like with Power Struggles, to go ahead and sculpt my hand to draw an attack that I might be able to use to go ahead and to attack them or to grab as a block for my opponent's turn. The next card I have is Getting a Ride. It's a 2 difficulty, 3 mid block with a 5 control check. I can as an enhance, destroy this foundation to return this attack to its printed speed. I can do this because it is playable while committed. I like to use this as a defensive ability to be able to go ahead and with characters that do have a lot of speed increase to go ahead and return them back to their printed to make it easier for me to block, because my block zones range from I have like 0 for Metin cells to even like Getting a Ride, which is a +3. So if they have their speed up to, they've increased it to between from starting from maybe between 4 to 6 to go to 7 to 8 even, that I can go ahead and move it back to its printed to make it easier to block. I also like the secondary ability of this card because it is, as a reaction, commit before the block step of my attack, return to its printed damage. Now, again, my attacks like Hurricane Upper, Duncan, Mistral, and Etten cells are between 1 to 3 damage. And if I like to combo it as, as a just in case, because even though if I don't have the Slaughterhouse out, giving it damage, someone can maybe have possibly a card to go ahead and reduce my damage so that they don't have to worry about blocking it. And that way, they go ahead and reduce my damage. Well, with Getting a Ride, I can go ahead and commit this to go ahead and use it as an offensive ability to return my damage back to its printed, so I can at least have some damage to make them think if they want to block this or not, kind of expecting them not to do that at first. And then, of course, with it being committed, it's still okay because I can still destroy it to return, on the defensive side on my opponent's turn to go ahead and destroy their speed back. Or, if I need to, even destroying it for my attack in case they have gone ahead and reduced my speed to negative, where I can go ahead and destroy it and put it back to its printed. The next card that I do have 4 of is Champion of Muay Thai. It's a 1 difficulty, it's a +3 low block with a 4 control check. It has as its first ability Enhance, destroy this foundation, reduce the attack speed to 1. This makes this card ability really defensive for myself because, again, when I'm using Duo's ability, I can also change my opponent's attacks as well and give them that +1 speed. So with getting a ride, putting it back to its printed, or with Champion of Muay Thai, once I've changed their zone to any other zone and giving them that +1 speed, I can destroy this foundation defensively to go ahead and reduce it to a 1 speed to make it easier to block, especially with having my 3 difficulty blocks going down to 0, making it easier so it makes it easier for me to be able to pass my control check, to be able to block that attack, to be more defensive. I also have, as a reaction, Commit. After a mid-attack is played, change the zone of that attack to high. I don't really use this ability that much because I want their attack to stay at mid because I do have a lot of mid blocks. So for me to be more defensive, I like to leave the attack zone the way it is and change it to Duo's ability. And for myself to really use that, I'd rather change it off of Duo to change it to high so I can give it a +1 speed. And for my opponent, I want to leave it at mid or try to change it back to mid due to Duo's ability. I don't want it to be a high attack. The next card I have 4 of is the Hungry Wolf. It's a 1 difficulty, it's a +3 mid block, and a 5 control check. It has as an enhance, your attack is +1 speed, only playable if there are no cards in your opponent's card pool. I use this card with its ability, so when my opponent has no cards in their card pool on my turn, I can go ahead and, when I play an attack, go ahead and use this enhance to increase my speed by +1. So it makes it more difficult as I keep trying to do, either using the Hungry Wolf, as well as the Silent Assassin Duo itself, and Etten Cells to try to increase my attack speed, so that makes it more difficult for my opponent to block my attack. So that way, since they're not blocking it, they're not adding a card to their card pool, so I can keep using the Hungry Wolf. And then the last card I'll talk about that I have, only 2 of, is Remembrance. It's a 2 difficulty, +3 low block with a 5 control check. Its first ability is E-Commit. This attack gets safe until end of turn. This again is I like just because the example I used earlier with Slaughterhouse being safe, I can go ahead and give an attack save so that I don't have to worry about my opponent trying to swing on my turn an attack at me doing to its reversal to try to do damage to me so that I can go ahead and play more cards, not have to worry about blocking them and increasing my difficulty adding that card to my card pool. Also, it has E, and it's only available during my turn. I can destroy this card, I can draw 1 card, and only playable while it's committed. I like this card because I can go ahead and once I've committed using this card to give it safe, I can go ahead and choose to destroy it to go ahead and draw a card. So I can either use it to draw to try another attack, maybe draw another foundation if I would need to play more foundations to try to be more defensive or offensive for my next turn or for that turn, as well as possibly using it to block during my opponent's turn. Alright, so a few things we'll talk about. We'll go ahead and pull up my graphs here and make sure we have Duo showing. So, we have the different card types. I'm running total of 39 foundations. I have 4 actions, 4 assets, total of 18 attacks, but I have been debating on adding in either 2 more death blows or possibly doing 2 more hurricane uppers to go ahead and have to make that a total of 20, as well as 0 extra characters. I am running, for the difficulties, I'm running what I like to have, what I call are the spams. I have, are my 0 and 1 difficulty cards. I have 6 0 difficulty and 11 1 difficulties. I usually like to have 16 spams or higher in my deck if I can get more as an average. As well as, when we talk about card types for the attacks, I like to run between 16 to 20 attacks depending on the character. If they like to attack more, I might go between 18 to 20, possibly even 22 depending on my deck and how I like it. I have, for my 2 difficulties, I have 22 difficulties and then 23 difficulties. The reason why there's so many high difficulties of 3 is because most of my attacks, out of my 18 attacks, 16 of them are 3 difficulties. And then I have 4 difficulties and 4 or 5 difficulties. One of the big things I always like to check when I check on my graph with my deck when I'm looking to modify it is I always like to look at the block zones. Now, this is a little bit different for Duo because of Duo's ability, having that I can change to high or mid attack, either with my attack or my opponent's. So, with the block zones, again, I have 15 no blocks. I usually try to keep it down as low as possible because I like to block. And with this character, he likes to block a lot more mid. So, I've been trying to find a way to bring the 15 down. Now, I'm not running as many high blocks because I only have 2, or low blocks of 9. I usually try to run that, but to have at least 15 of each, so that possibly, I'm able to block with other decks. This one I don't have as many high because, again, with Duo's ability, I changed to mid. And so that's why I have 39 mid blocks. Another thing I like to check is what are my block modifiers to see the numbers. As you can see, I have between 15 no blocks, as well as between 0 to 3 plus blocks, and see the numbers there. Another thing I like to check is my attack zone. What zone of my attacks and where my attacks are at. With this deck, again, since I'm changing, I chose to do 14 mid blocks, or 14, attack zoned, and then only 4 low attacks. Because, again, most of the time, I change my attack to high to get that +1 speed. Another thing I like to look at, also too, with my deck is my stats. I have a total of 65 cards in my deck at the moment. I am running 50 of them with blocks, and gives me my average block modifier, and difficulty, and my average control check. And then the breakdown of each card in their blocks, as well as the average of blocks and totals of the zones. I just found out this new thing that has where you can go ahead and generate a first hand, which I'll go ahead and do and discuss what I would do in a couple situations with my first hand. So the first one we have here, we have 6 cards that I've drawn due to Duo's ability of drawing 6 cards. I see that I have 4 attacks. I have 1 Slaughterhouse, a Mistral, 3 Etten Cells, and then 2 Foundations, a Remembrance, and a Summer Heat. This is something that I would really debate on playing. I know with Summer Heat, with its ability, once I play it, I can go ahead and draw another card. Now, since I'm not able to generate more cards because of its ability, I really don't know what that card would be. And just like with playing the card, that's where I would have to think, since I cannot see my deck anyways. So, it's something where I have to discuss with myself, do I really want to keep this hand, due to only having the 2 Foundations, but possibly drawing another one due to Summer Heat, and with Remembrance for the next turn if I need to go ahead and play an attack, and go ahead and draw another card and destroy this, which means then I'd only be down to 1 Foundation. But I could also, as a discussion, since I do have like Etten Cells, which is on a 3, the only possibly playing one of them, and then playing the 2 Foundations. Something that I actually do discourage when I go ahead and demo people to do is to not play attacks first, especially on the first turn, due to the fact of, if you play, example, if you played a Slaughterhouse on a 5. Now, the risk of playing as we see here, we can look at our risks. We have a difficulty, we have a 5 difficulty attack, and we'll say with your foundations being committed of 0, it is a 55.38% chance that you could pass it. But the difficulty does go down as well. So there is that possibility that you could pass it. But at the same chance, there is the, difficulty of not passing it and then losing your turn and allowing your opponent to be able to play with their character uncommitted and possibly attack you as well that first turn, and you'll have really no defense. So most likely, I would actually suggest, and I would actually choose to probably mulligan this hand. Mulligan for the game means that you would go ahead and remove your hand from the game and go ahead and draw back to your hand size. So I would lose those 6 cards from the game at the start of the game, but I could draw into something better, which we'll go ahead and see what it would be. So this is our next hand that would come if we did mulligan that first one. And I would definitely say to go ahead and I would keep something like this. I do like this hand because it's a good starting hand. And again, it does have a Summer Heat in it, or I can go ahead and draw another card. So I would go ahead and play that on a 2 difficulty first. And then I have Astute Observer, so I can go ahead and use that to in case I need to draw a card, or to be defensive in case the foundation does get destroyed. It is a 2 difficulty, and as well as the seeking information. So as I'm checking my cards, as well as attacks are being blocked and they're going to my discard pile, I can go ahead and add them back in for future turns. On the attack side, that I would definitely once I've played these 3 foundations with Summer Heat, and then pulling another card that we can't see at the moment, I would definitely play Summer Heat on a 2 difficulty, play Astute Observer as my second card, being a 3 difficulty because of progressive difficulty of going the 2 difficulty plus 1 of Summer Heat, and then playing Seeking Information on a 2 because it has a 0 difficulty, but plus 2 being Astute Observer and Summer Heat. Now, depending on the next card I draw, if it's a 1 difficulty or 2 difficulty foundation, I would definitely either decide to play Seeking Information first to be a lower difficulty, and then possibly playing that card, maybe it might increase up to a 5, knowing that a lot of my cards, as we look here, for the control check. Sorry, I need to look in the stats. And the control check being an average of up to almost 5 on certain instances, not counting the attacks, that I could possibly get, to pass it as a possibility. Alright, so let's go ahead and that was my first solitaire of trying my deck. Let's go ahead and see what another first hand would look like. So we have this hand here that I could possibly start with. I like this hand because I have Golden Ticket, which is one that I like to play first because it is only a 3 difficulty, which means that I know because of my attacks being all 3 that I'll still pass either way when I play, even playing with my character committed. As well as for the next turn, if I draw attacks, I can go ahead and use its ability. It also has a Templar in my hand, which is good because I can use to hold on to as a defensive, using Duo's ability to go ahead and change them to mid. And then I can see that I have 4 foundations. So, besides my asset and action card, I have my 4 foundations will help me to get my resources to be defensive, or possibly offensive with the cards. Power Struggle I might hold on to or decide to play. But the first one I'd start with would be Kapukan Training. Since it doesn't have a block on it, it's one of them that I definitely want to go ahead and play, as well as using its offensive and defensive abilities by either removing keywords or during my turn go ahead and increase its speed if the opponent has no card in their card pool. The next one I would play is Getting a Ride because it will be on a 2 difficulty plus 1, being Kabukin Training being the next card in my card pool. So I would play it on a 3, knowing that I would automatically pass it. And I can go ahead and use that again as an offensive or defensive card with its abilities, depending on the situation. Now, with Power Struggle being a 1, I could play that and go ahead and make it the 3 since I have Getting a Ride and Kapukan Training in my card pool, and knowing that I'll pass the check. Now, since I have a Templar in my hand, I can maybe hold on. I can go ahead and play this card due to its ability to be able to draw a card and sculpt my hand. So I can go ahead and play that on a 3, and go ahead and play that so that I have that as a foundation to bring down. And then lastly, I would play Hizuko Prince because I want to play that because it has a no block on it, but it has a 0 difficulty, so it would be the 4th card in my card pool, but because it is 0 and 3 cards in front of it, would be or actually it would be, I'm sorry, I have 4 cards in front of it because I would have played Golden Ticket first. It would be on a 4, as well as Power Struggle is on a 4. So that's where the decisions could be made between the two, since I would have had Golden Ticket and then Kabukin Training on a 3, and then probably playing Getting Right on a 4. I could possibly save this and go to Power Struggles to play that still again on a 3, and then play Hazuko Prince on a 4, or possibly play Getting a Ride on a 5, and then making Hazuko Prince a 5. There's certain situations where I'll have to decide, and depending on the hand, because it could be also later on in the game that I could have this hand and decide what do I really want to do with this if I later on in the game if I don't have any of these cards out. And well, that is my deck and my explanation of Duo and why I've chosen to do certain things with this deck. I hope you enjoy it and hope to be able to use the ideas. I will be going ahead and putting out each month. I'll try to make a deck and go ahead and put it up here on UFS Ultra. It is on uh, it is under as my screen name of Uncle Mikey to check it out. And if you have any ideas on the deck, if you want to go ahead and post them down here in your comments, or as well as I will be posting this on YouTube as well. You can put it in the comments down there on certain things you might see maybe could be different that I haven't seen yet to decide to add in or take out, or even cards you could see maybe not work as well in the deck that you like to help fit your style. I hope you've enjoyed this deck profile, and I hope to hear your comments and good constructive criticism. Thank you, and have a good